fire, 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 fire. Anybody else sick of frickin' remakes? Holy frick. Minecraft movie, Disney remakes, Star Wars remakes. I'm sick of it, I'm not gonna lie.
The Ouroboros
You're joking.
is an ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail. There are many interpretations of it. One is the endless cycle of
Resident
nature
Evil.
and time. Another is renewal. As the snake eats more of its back, the fresh front will replace it. But the most literal is destruction. The snake will eventually eat itself to death.
Yep.
This is the worst era in film history.
Finally someone frickin' says it. Finally someone says it how it is.
I don't mean financially. I haven't run the numbers. I don't know if there are more flops than usual. I don't mean critically. I don't know if movies are getting more bad reviews than in prior eras. I mean artistically. Artistically, we are in the worst era in film history. My reasoning for this claim is simple. For the past 10 years, mainstream culture has been inundated with terrible movies.
I'm telling you, 2013, something happened. Maybe 2012 was right. The Mayan calendar everybody was screaming about, like in middle school and like primary school, and all the high schoolers are crying and saying that the world's gonna end. Maybe it was like a sign.
Lacking in vision, mired with problem after problem.
Oh God.
Shackled to nostalgia without substance or care for what
Lord.
made those original nostalgic movies good in the first place. And they are now trying to deny the sacredness of death. Yes, you heard me right. Deny the sacredness of death.
Let things die. True.
You've heard the opinion, there's too many remakes and sequels these days, so much that it's become cliche. The more accurate problem is that there's too many bad remakes and sequels these days. I doubt many people would be complaining if all these franchise additions were good. However,
I kind of disagree purely on the notion that when I was a kid and I saw Mulan and then I saw Mulan 2, I didn't think it was as good as Mulan, like the first one. And also like the Little Mermaid, and then the second one came out. It's not a remake either, it's a sequel. Like they want to keep milking a franchise. And I know it's not the same thing as a remake. It's almost inadvertently the same because you're not letting a franchise rest. As well as Shrek. I think Shrek should have stopped at like 2. Toy Story 2 and 3 were good. Toy Story 3 wasn't that great, but it was okay, I think. Again, I'm going into the weeds a little bit, but I do think there's like, it has to stop.
I also don't think a landscape filled with remakes and sequels and little else is likely to be good. You may say, well, hang on, that's just the super mainstream. What about all these original indie and low-budget films coming out? And I will retort, those are good to have, but mainstream culture is important. It's where the most money is. It's what gets the most eyeballs. I think it says something about us, and it says something about the creative limitations of some of our most paid artists, that mainstream culture is so derivative right now. We are in an age of not just copies, but bad copies, and I intend to watch it all burn to the ground.
Base. He's an auntie, I like that.
There's something I want to tell you about.
Psh. No!
My heritage.
Oh,
Last time I
fuck!
told you that our family has a picture on our kitchen
Please don't
island
have the
with
moving
several
faces,
ancestors
please.
in it, and they all look pretty
Please.
radical. Problem is, we don't have any idea who most of them are. That's why
don't know who they are
MyHeritage
either.
is an illuminating website. It can search through 20 billion historical records, and all you need are a few names and dates, and it will start to fill in your family
What?
tree with better and even new information. Instant
don't have the
Discoveries
moving
is a way for
faces.
new people to be added to your tree automatically. I can add people I know are in my past, which can connect me with more potential ancestors. Hey Mom, I'm on the MyHeritage website again.
I loved how you found that other photo of my grandmother when she was probably 3 years old. I don't know, man, it really activates that section of my brain that's dedicated to my grandmother. It's like, even at the age of 3, I'm looking at her in that touched up photo,
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like I see her.
Can you tell me who
I mean, that's cute.
this person is?
I have no idea. Was there a clue on my heritage?
I
Really?
found an alternative photo, and I'm pretty certain that's probably the same person. This is
God, my
Nancy
skin
James,
smells. Nancy James.
born in 1855. She was born in
Wow.
Tennessee, grandmother of
You're
your
the only
grandmother.
10 I see,
If this
chat.
kind of family sleuthing
Don't
interests
animate the
you,
faces,
sign up
please.
for a 14-day free trial with the link below and enjoy all MyHeritage has to offer. Thanks to MyHeritage for
Oh, thank
sponsoring
God.
this video.
No animated faces. Thank God.
The Star Wars franchise has got to be the most analyzed franchise in the 21st century. The Star Wars sequel trilogy has been
Yeah.
critiqued possibly more than any other franchise edition in history, even more than the infamous prequel trilogy that came before it. But why
Yeah.
is that? I won't belabor this
I think it's one of the oldest fandoms for sure. Like, that's still standing to this day.
point, because you've heard it a lot. The sequel trilogy, and a vast majority of Star Wars media under Disney, is heavily flawed. And this is not something that is simply my personal opinion. Watch the entirety of the original 3 Star Wars movies and count
The best peak Star Wars.
things that are mistakes. Objective mistakes. A stormtrooper in the background hitting his head on a door. Or Luke kicking two
But that. Oh, come on, man. That makes it good.
far from an actor to look like it connected. But what about coincidences or contrivances in the plot?
Sure.
Take the sequence where Luke gets more and more of his friends captured in Jabba's palace in an attempt to rescue Han Solo. If you really analyze this plan, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you tallied up these problems across the entire original trilogy, at the upper end, you'd probably have 100 problems. Some
Sure.
big, some small.
Yeah.
Which by no means is unusual when creating a large and complicated fictional story and world. When you get to the prequel trilogy, these problems become more numerous and more severe. Why do the Jedi use Force Run once and never again? Why does Obi-Wan smash through a window to latch onto this drone when he could easily plummet to his death? Why
I mean, why did Lord of the Rings, why did they not send the Eagles to fly to Mordor? Like, again, it's such a silly thing to, like, criticize. Yeah, I still love those types of movies. It doesn't have to make, like, extreme perfect sense. I get what he's getting at, though. I do.
isn't this assassination drone built to self-destruct
Eagles are
so
on
no one
cooldown,
can track
yeah.
it back? I know Obi-Wan is a Jedi,
Excellent.
but this is downright suicidal. How is an electrified spear thrown very hard capable of shattering Star Cruiser windows? But I think the worst of the prequel's flaws have to do with the characters. Like how Anakin Skywalker goes from being tempted to the dark side and maiming someone to defend another, to slaughtering innocent children in mere minutes. Or how Obi-Wan leaves Anakin to brutally die. What compounds problems like these is that the prequels affect the continuity of the original trilogy. Across all the prequels, I would estimate there may be 1,000 problems. Some big, some small. Which is a lot. Again, these are estimates. The exact number doesn't matter too much. The point is that from trilogy to trilogy, these problems increase in quantity dramatically.
Star Wars wasn't a book or, like, it was just a script, right? Again, it's difficult. Like, if you're a script writer, you're doing it for a movie, and with a book, it's a lot easier to track those kinds of flaws. Yeah, it was original property. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. I was like, with a book, again, even with Lord of the Rings, even though they had a book, they had to condense a lot. They had to skip a lot of lore that would make the original, like, the movies to make sense. And a lot of people were pissed about that, but I still think it's a great adaptation. With a script like an original franchise that was meant for movies, I think you can forgive a lot of that.
And
As
when
long
I
as
talk
it's
about
good,
problems,
right?
I'm not talking about stilted acting or
Yeah.
whether I have an emotional connection to the films. I'm talking about things that don't logically follow. Errors that may not be noticed by the audience at first, but are
Sure.
nonetheless still there and tend to damage the work upon further contemplation. And if fixed, would make that piece of media better. When you get to the sequel trilogy, across all 3 films, I estimate there are thousands of problems.
A knife is painted out of the background to keep Rey from dying during a fight scene. The half-sunken wreckage of the Death Star is used as a marker for a knife map that can only work while standing at a specific point on the landscape while pointed at a specific part of the wreckage. All of this while ignoring the fact this wreckage should not exist in huge pieces like this anyway. Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter gets
That's a
damaged,
good point.
rolls across the desert at 200 miles per hour, and explodes. He walks out of it perfectly fine moments later. Even
Well, I mean, he's just so good. Like, what do you mean? He used the Force to like protect himself. Come on, like I could explain that away. I know people really don't like this, but I could explain it away. Come on, he's just Giga Chad standing, Force shell armor. Come on. Yeah, he's just built different. He's just that cool.
if you like these films, you have to
The
admit
Force
these moments
Chad.
do not work. They cannot function in a coherent story. You have to admit these films would be better without these problems. Yet these films are riddled with them. It is rare for any given scene to not have a problem within it. And what compounds problems like these are how they affect the original and prequel trilogies. The Force Awakens was hugely influential on the film industry in ways we have only recently
Unfortunately,
begun to
man.
comprehend. Much of the teasing in the movie and trailer is echoed in sequels of similar franchise giants. The Force Awakens rehashes the general plot structure, themes, and iconography of A New Hope, which satisfied most people at the time, but in hindsight, the film had very little substance in itself. Beyond a few concepts of concepts, it had no merits that stood on their own. The Last Jedi also borrows iconography and themes of The Empire Strikes Back,
That's
such as the
fine,
rebels
yeah.
being scattered and hunted throughout the film. But you're left wondering why the Resistance, which
Can I just say how amazing it is that back then in the 80s, when they made this is not CGI. They're paintings. I found that out recently that they paint this stuff like on a matte glass or whatever. Oh my god, man.
should be in power, is being chased and outgunned by those
Crazy,
who
bro. Yeah,
shouldn't
minifigures,
have an overwhelming
yeah.
force? Sure, there are plenty of original ideas in the film too,
Insane.
but they only seek to cut short plot lines that had been established in The Force Awakens. And finally, you have The Rise of Skywalker, which is so blatant in its borrowing that it resurrects a villain from the original trilogy
They couldn't even get an original villain that could live up to him. That's strong.
who exploded twice. Throughout the whole sequel trilogy, even things like spaceships are simply original trilogy ships but painted black.
Well, I mean, they changed the direction kind of on the little thingies, right? Yeah. Yeah, you guys are mad.
Or soft
Right.
reboots of original trilogy ships.
That's
There
so
is no
cool.
natural evolution in technology. There is no changing of the power dynamics in the galaxy. There is no change in the strategies or behaviors of the warring factions from the decades before. And even though they tease us with potential ideas, there is no change in how we understand the villains or the heroes. After the conclusion of this trilogy, it became blatantly obvious that they had no overarching plan. You don't end up with this many problems within a trilogy because of a few slip-ups. Your priorities have to be seriously out of whack from the very beginning. There was clearly a lack
Money.
of communication between teams,
Money.
a lack of time, a lack of care. From the very beginning, Disney wanted to recapture the magic, feel, and success of the original trilogy, but did not have the planning, skills, vision, or originality to do that. If they did just rehash the original trilogy, it might have done okay. The problem is the sequel trilogy isn't just a copy of the original trilogy,
They did even the death scene with the frickin' lightning as well. He didn't even die differently.
it's a bad copy. All they could do was chew up what they had before and spit it back out.
Yep.
In the Ahsoka TV series, based off of a character
Ahsoka
in the
these
animated
nuts.
Star Wars The Clone Wars series, they have to bring back Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker.
She's a Twi'lek.
They have to tease us with Darth Vader. In the Book of Boba Fett, they have
And again, it's so insulting when you do this to the audience. Like, you blatantly show that it's like, this is a reference, you guys.
They have to bring back Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker. They have to tease us with Darth Vader.
Look,
In the
it's
Book
him.
of Boba Fett, they have to bring back Cad Bane, one of the coolest characters in the animated Clone Wars, just to kill him off after a couple of scenes. Truly baffling. They put in the effort to bring in this character in live action.
And Luke Skywalker being an absolute fucking ding dong. Dude, I didn't watch these, but I saw clips here and there, and it just was so. It felt gross, if that makes sense. Like, I have no real attachment. Like, I'm not a giga diehard Star Wars fan. Yeah, it is just so. They did him dirty, yeah.
Just to unceremoniously end his story forever.
Sad.
At the end of the Han Solo film, they have to tease us with Darth Maul of all people. I just remembered this. At the end of Obi-Wan, they tease us with Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn. Even in The Acolyte, despite how terrible it is a show with 90% brand new, never before seen or referenced characters.
Okay.
But still, it has to have a Sith with a black spooky mask and unconventional red lightsaber. And has to tease us at the very end with Darth Plagueis and Yoda.
Dude, it was so cool. I remember. When did the. Hold on. Just so I know what I'm talking about. It was, Yeah. Yeah, it was episode 1 or. No. Was it episode 1 when they had that really sick fight with Darth Maul? God, I remember people talking about that a long time ago, and even after that, that's choreography for that scene with that double lightsaber. Oh my god.
They
So
cannot
cool.
help themselves. Could Star Wars TV shows utilize these existing characters to enhance their stories? Yes. Will they ever use them as anything else than as a crutch to prop up their own terrible scripts with memories of better things?
Member berries! South Park talked about this. Again, the member berries of like, look, Soy Pog, look! It's a reference! It's a reference, you guys! There's nothing original about this!
That's all they've done. That's all they'll ever do. Andor is their
They can't
one
even
good
allude to
show,
it.
which makes it miles ahead of these other shows, and it doesn't have any of these silly character teases. The only thing against it is that it's slower. The original Star Wars was a product of multiple influences reforged into one work from a genuine artist during a time where innovation was
So
necessary.
cool. Look
I
at
don't
they
think
look for
Disney in its
games.
current form is capable of replicating that right now. The Star Wars brand now has significantly more.
Yeah, didn't he say that that Disney's just kind of choking the life out of Star Wars, like his baby? He did interviews like years and years ago, even like 10 years ago, where he said that. Yeah.
More movies and shows that are bad and forgettable than it does movies and shows which are good and special.
Sad, dude.
Disney has diluted the brand and its identity. In the trailer for The Skeleton Crew, we see alien environments that don't feel alien. There are aliens walking alien pets, aliens going to school, taking tests, and wearing backpacks. Aliens walking down concrete roads and sidewalks that go to homes with pitched roofs. This isn't a Star Wars neighborhood. This is a Disney Channel original movie suburb with
This looks like the Robinsons. This looks like the Robinsons. Yeah, it does. It does. Oh my god, he even added the logo. That's actually so funny. That's what immediate thought. I was like, this is not Star Wars. This is like a original spin-off. Yeah, Meet the Robinsons. Yeah, I remember seeing that a long time ago.
a coat of paint. It speaks to such a lack of imagination. As long as artists are making things that are only references to their own brand, that are only inspired by this incest of ideation, I don't think we're going to get good movies, let alone worthy sequels. When you
Blizzard
look
does
at the
this
recent
too.
Marvel movies and TV shows, they are also riddled with problems just like this. In Endgame, they spend a good chunk of the movie simply revisiting Marvel's greatest hits in the form of time travel. Spider-Man No Way Home is a better movie than you'd expect, but it does rub me the wrong way how they have to bring back Sam Raimi's villains and previous iterations of Spider-Man in this convoluted way. At least the film has the balls to rehandle characters in previous films that were not well received. But I fear Hollywood learned the wrong lessons from the success of this movie.
I mean, ultimately, it's good to look at, and that's what audiences really care about, unfortunately. Not a lot of people can appreciate a piece of art, like, its deeper meaning, as long as the slop coming out of it is, like, digestible or fun. At least to them.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was the last Marvel project I ever saw in theaters, and it was so bad it gave me a headache by the time it was over.
I stopped way before that. This guy's strong.
Besides constantly not making sense, and fundamentally not understanding what infinity actually means, they, for some reason, bring in recognizable characters such as Professor X, played by the Patrick Stewart, Mr. Fantastic, played by John Krasinski, Captain Carter, Captain Marvel,
the guy from The
and Black
Office,
Bolt.
Lamau.
Just to 5 minutes later, kill them all violently, in the dumbest ways possible.
Why do they kill them? What is with them fetishizing killing old characters? I've never seen this, but that just strikes me as bizarre.
Because Wanda wants to be with her imaginary kids. It's
What?
baffling. When you look at the Rings of
A woman wrote this. She wants to see her kids because she lost them in the divorce because she's crazy.
Power series, it's also riddled with problems and callbacks. When you look at Deadpool and the Wolverine, it's riddled with problems and callbacks. Alien Romulus is riddled with problems and callbacks.
Get away.
Even Prometheus was a little bit. It was When did Prometheus come out? 2014. It was not that great of a movie, and I remember people already disliking it because it was basically like a massive throwback. It was relatively well done, from a what is it called? From a design perspective. It was a bit slow. It was really cool, like the planet and everything, and the design and the sound. But the script just felt kind of a little bit off. And by a little bit, I mean it was just kind of like a bunch of throwbacks to, like, you know, the original. Yeah. Romulus I have not seen, but I would imagine it's even worse because it's more recent. Prometheus put me off Future Aliens. I don't blame you. I watched it a long time ago when I was a kid, but now watching it back, like, I maybe watched it like 5 years ago, it definitely, I could see a lot of the holes of, like, how it was just not a well-written thing, and it was mostly like a callback.
From her, you bitch!
Yeah.
Get away from her. You
See?
bitch.
Oh god.
He could have said anything. I don't know. Chad, I honestly think it would have been better if he said "Hasta la vista, baby." I think he would have pulled it off better if he said "Hasta la vista, baby," and then that would have been more acceptable.
I haven't even
Change my
mentioned
mind.
all the Jurassic
the
World
chopper.
films, all the new Terminator sequels,
True.
Wonder Woman 1984, Matrix
God.
Resurrections, yet another old Indiana Jones. Ever since 2015,
And what's sad is that Harrison Ford is clearly really old, and it's like, why are we even doing this to him, man? He clearly has, like, a gun to his head by Disney. They're like, all right, old man, I know you're retired. Come on, get up. We gotta get you up there. Come on, man. And he's like, oh, I just want to eat some ice cream with my kids. Yeah, like, I don't know. It's just pathetic. And I don't mean any disrespect towards him. I think he's a great actor overall, but he's fucking old.
there's not just been a bunch of sequels released every year, but there has been at least one infamous sequel released every single
Matrix
year.
was also
the year
so
before
bad.
that, Dumb and Dumber 2 was released, which I saw, but I don't think anyone remembers.
Why? The humor doesn't translate, even in 2014. When did the movie come out? Like the 80s or 90s? Early 90s, wasn't it? The humor doesn't translate. Yeah.
All I can recall is how gross and old Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels looked.
Oh.
What actually happened in that movie?
Oh, Lord.
Wait. The United States Department of Justice charged that money used to produce the film was stolen from a Malaysian government investment fund.
Okay. That's a nice little tidbit.
Huh, learn something new every day.
Interesting.
If you look at the announcements for Disney movies, it is bleak. At D23, 4 out of the 17 films are not sequels or remakes, and only
What? What?
3 are seemingly original. If you look further into the future, it does not get much better. People would probably not be worried about the state of entertainment if
You untitled Pirates of the Caribbean project. Brother, let it die. It died with Johnny Depp not being allowed to be in the film. I just can't.
most of these sequels were stellar, but there are signs most of these are going to be awful. The Snow White
Yeah.
remake is ludicrously expensive, has been hit with controversy after controversy, and a 1-year delay. The Toy Story
Jeez,
franchise
dude.
concluded well with the third one and has no idea where to go. The Lion King
Yeah, I think the third one was fine. It wasn't perfect, but the ending really... Like, I think Toy Story 3 overall was okay, but the ending really was well written, in my opinion. Where he's, like, giving it to the little girl. Is that the one? Or is that Toy Story 4? No, it was 3. It was 3, wasn't it? With the big teddy bear? I remember seeing that in the theaters. Oh my god, that was a long time ago. Yeah, that was well written. But after that, it just went off the fucking rails. Really, truly did.
remake prequel
They
does not
should've
have the
stopped at
writing or
3.
nostalgia of the original Lion King to use as a crutch.
Blech!
Nearly every Marvel project since Endgame has been a disaster. Incredibles 2
Wait, hold up. Wasn't there already a Lion King sequel that was CGI? What? Why do we need another one? Why? And it made over $1 billion? Chat, I'm starting to think it's money laundering. This isn't real money. The live action remake, Mufasa, is a prequel. Oh, they didn't even want to do Lion King 2, which was okay, I guess.
did not live up to the original, and frankly, I don't think Disney has the teeth to ever make a good Incredibles film.
Dude.
Is it possible these projects could turn out well? Yes. Is it likely?
No.
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 A landscape of purely derivative art is not healthy for creative minds.
No. Well, it's kind of. I don't want to liken it to AI directly, but it is kind of like AI. You're just regurgitating the same crap over and over, and you're still making the same stuff. It's just not. You're just throwing up all over the table and expecting people to eat it and then shit it out, and then you just continue the cycle. It doesn't really work that way. Yeah. Except that does work because it's making a lot of money. That's why they keep doing it. Sloppa ploppa.
I used to think there
Sloppa.
were no bad ideas, only bad executions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not so sure about this.
The existence of a live-action Harold and the Purple Crayon movie is
What?
hilarious on the face of it. An animated film adapting Harold would have plenty of potential,
I've never
but a
heard of
live-action
this.
film seems, maybe I'm being dramatic here, kind of impossible to be good. The appeal of the children's book is that it's a story about someone creating their own world through drawing. Everything
Okay.
he does in the book is two-dimensional and simplified.
That's
There's
cute.
a visual joke where Harold shakes his crayon and unintentionally creates wavy water that he falls into. And they animate this. In fact, they fully
Okay.
animate the first 5 minutes of the film, just to pivot to the real world. Why?
Cause I actually don't know that. Is it more money to? I feel like it's more money to CGI the characters into the real world. Yeah, that seems cute, like little drawing.
If you have to have live action, why not do it Roger Rabbit style and have 2D animation interact with the real world? Making
Space
this cute
Jam.
toddler into a grown man and then putting him into the boring, already made real world that spawns glossy, hyper-realistic objects out of his drawings instead of taking the obvious path and creating an animated 2D film is just a bad idea.
It's so
While we're on
creepy.
children's books, a The Giving Tree feature-length movie would be
Oh,
a bad
no.
idea. And I know damn well a producer has looked at the Giving Tree sales numbers and thought about it. The book is so concise in its message and purposefully leaves out a lot of information to convey its message that there is very little you can add to it without actively undermining it. A typical Hollywood...
And that's the beauty of books like this, is that you don't need to write extra and it's up to interpretation. Like, I'm sure there's people hyper-analyzing this book, even though it's been out for like 50 years, man. 50 plus years, actually, I think. But it's just like, why do you need to do this? And then they insert their own idea of the interpretation, and people get mad at them!
Hollywood screenwriter would probably expand on the boy's life or give the tree more to do in the story.
Yeah.
And God forbid, we'd have a bunch of scenes like this. Come, boy, come. Swing from my branches and play in my shade.
Whoa! Did that tree just talk?
Whoa,
That's a
bro.
talking tree! I must be going
high.
crazy!
Is it possible for a Giving Tree movie to be made that's good? Yes, but it would have to be very creative in its storytelling, so unusual and new in a way I can't even fathom, and I think that's very unlikely to happen. Furthermore, is it possible for a Giving Tree movie to be made that's even better than the book? I say that's damn near impossible without just making your own original story. This is what makes the Joker movie kind of an oddity. The Joker is a decent movie about mental illness and living in a culture lacking in empathy that is only tenuously connected to the DC universe. It's a
I don't even think it was insanely well written. I just think it came at a time where people really needed something that was countercultural in Hollywood making, and it had the power of obviously having the Joker, even though it was basically adjacent to the universe. Yeah, I don't know. Again, the script was fine. Like, I watched the whole thing and I didn't like skip anything. And I watched it and I was like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. It wasn't bad. The sequel is terrible. Don't tell that to Pippa.
Trojan Horse movie, sneaking in an original story into something masquerading as a DC supervillain film.
It had the power of the franchise in getting that that boost of like attention, for sure.
After Joker's success, I was kind of expecting more original stories with big franchise paint on them, but I can't recall any more examples like this. The Lego Movie is a film that you would not expect to be good, but surprisingly is. I owe most of its success to two things: prioritizing creating an enjoyable story before trying to sell its product, and treating the property with sincerity. The film really ties everything together by connecting it to the real world at the end, yes, but only as a way to emphasize what the purpose of a buildable toy like Lego is at its core.
Such a good marketing scheme, too. Low-key. Very, very good way to sell a product, and a lot of cartoons that people aren't even aware of, like He-Man. I think it was what was another one? I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like in the early 80s and 90s, they started doing this whole cartoons and then marketing, like a big ad for kids. Transformers, that's a really good one as well. This is very clever. And I think people need to appreciate that, like, advertising can be successful if it's, like, well written. People used to enjoy watching commercials, not so much anymore. I mean, yeah, it was annoying, but still, like, it was an experience at least.
The Super Mario Bros. Movie is possibly the most generic and safe kids movie I have ever seen. I'm not talking about the original, which is the opposite of that. If you saw the trailer, yeah, that's the movie. There is not a single thing in this film that will surprise you. However, it's not bad. It's nice. It's fine. This film was very...
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's very commercialized, you can tell.
well received. And I believe that's because the story was not insulting, and the movie treats the Mushroom Kingdom with awe and sincerity. A lesser film might be irritatingly sarcastic, and mock the whole idea of platforming and power-ups. But because this film is faithful and interprets these video game ideas sincerely, people are more charitable to the film than it probably deserves. Judging by the trailer, the Minecraft movie is going to be...
I still don't know why they casted Jack Black, man. I don't understand this.
profoundly mediocre. I can just feel it, dripping with insincerity. Oh, the main character you play as in the game is named Steve. How stupid is that? I'm gonna roll my eyes.
This guy is such a tool bag.
Look at the animals and how derpy they look. Wow.
It's horrifying. Why would you make something that is so stylized? Like, I understand the CGI looks great and everything, but like the actual animals are so ugly. They're in that dystopian, like, weird looking live action where the animals look like they're out of a cartoon, but not quite.
Wow, the world is made of blocks. Isn't that weird? Isn't that just heckin' crazy?
That's
You don't have to
What the
place things right on the
hell?
crafting table to craft. Who cares? I hope this trailer is just really misleading, because it depresses me that no matter what happens, it's still going to make $1 billion. Right in the
Yeah,
middle of editing
kids.
this, the trailer for the Electric State movie, based off of Simon Stålenhag's graphic novel, was released. And I am actually kind of shocked at how generic it looks. This trailer is pure slop. More triple A-list actors we know are not going to play actual characters. Looks like we're getting another Gus Fring. How do you take such
What? What? They put him in that?
atmospheric artwork and turn it into this?
Dude, I remember this too. His artwork was so, like, haunting. Hollywood slopified shit.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. I have never seen anyone turn something so silent and somber into pure, loud Marvel action crap. Oh my god, talk about not understanding what you're adapting. The key to making a work
This was what happens with video games too, man. They make a video game and they don't even understand the author's intentions, man. Shut up.
based on an existing non-film property is sincerity. Treating the thing you're adapting seriously and
respect,
understanding
man.
it on its own merits. And if you understand it on its own merits, you'll understand that the typical fictional character enters the real world or vice versa plot, and treating a property like any other property isn't going to cut it for most things. You're going to have to be unconventional. You're going to have to work by and understand the rules of that cultural artifact, or else you're just taking something in our culture and reheating it for the masses.
But unfortunately, it makes a lot of money, so they don't care. Here we go!
Most Disney live-action remakes are financially successful. You should find this to be an
Yep.
immensely sobering fact. The Lion King remake is bad. I knew it was going to be bad from the first
But it
trailer.
made billions.
The Aladdin remake is bad. I knew it was going to be bad when I first saw Will Smith's Blue Mug. Guess what? The Lilo and Stitch movie is going to be bad. The Hercules remake is going to be bad.
No, not Hercules! Oh, that's like one of my favorite Disney movies when I was a little kid. Oh my god. No!
The Moana remake is going to be bad.
What? They're remaking Moana that came out like yesterday. Are you kidding me? Already?
Not a single one of them has been worthwhile. So why does anyone expect the next one to be good? I attribute the success of these films solely to the fact it's a recognizable property done up in a new coat of paint. Something you've seen before, but with added spectacle. I can moan and groan about Hollywood's lack of originality and artistic drive.
I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I thought Frozen was a dog shit original franchise. I thought it was dog shit from the get-go. I hated it because of all the kids that would scream the song all the time. Then I watched it myself and I was like, this isn't even a good kids movie. Just blatantly, like, it's not even good.
But people, regular, common people, continue
In my
to pay
opinion,
for
you
these
might love it,
movies.
I don't care, but I
We're
think it
paying
sucked.
for our culture to be cannibalized.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Everything here. The last thing that was like remotely old is Toy Story 3, and it's in the top 10. It's not even in the top 5. They make hand over fist kind of money, huh?
What the general public
What?
needs to realize is these remakes aren't just copies, they're bad copies. Just look at YMS's video on the Lion King
Oh, I
remake
love
to
that
see
guy.
that this remake is demonstrably worse
I used to
than the
watch him all the
beloved
time.
classic it's trying to imitate in seemingly
Your
every
movie
way.
sucks.
From the animation, to the music, to the voice acting, to the story itself.
It looks washed out too. It looks washed
expected
out.
the Aladdin 2019 remake to be just below average. I was genuinely surprised to discover it is a film worse than its original in every conceivable way. The film is gray, ugly, and bloated beyond belief. You feel that extra 30 minutes.
How do you take a movie and make it longer, man? You have it set in stone.
There were about 2 tiny additions I liked, a bunch of things that made no difference, and a whole lot of things that made the story actively worse. To name just 2, the added songs sung by Jasmine are completely forgettable. And the second one literally pauses the universe of the movie in the middle of a scene to be sung. It's the most jarring thing I've ever
What?
seen in a musical. Abu touches
What?
treasure in the Cave of Wonders. The cave where you're explicitly not supposed to touch any treasure. Not the gem that comes later that causes the cave to collapse. Literally before that. And it doesn't cave in or spew lava. Aladdin walks on all these coins, getting to the lamp. He's touching treasure. They didn't have to put these coins here.
Yeah.
Guess which version
I
didn't put
mean-
treasure on major walkways? If you think this is it, no, there's so much more. The mistakes in this film...
Well, it's just they don't care. That's the biggest difference. Like, with Star Wars, you can understand the logic not being there because, again, they're not remaking something, they're going off the cuff. That's the biggest difference. You had a piece of work that made sense, and you shit all over it.
compound on themselves so much I need half the video to explain them. Disney could have had Will Smith play a fresh interpretation of the genie, which he does sparingly, but for the most part, they had no confidence in themselves, so I'm sure they spent $1 million and thousands of VFX dungeon hours just to make Will Smith blue, and make him repeat all of Robin Williams' lines, but with less personality. I'll give it to them.
I mean, what's the play though? If you remove Robin Williams's jokes, then you look even worse. And the wrong actor, brother, Robin's dead. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you now, like years later, but yeah, I'm just saying. What's the play though? If it's Robin Williams or it's him saying the bits. Yeah. Use AI, Rob.
They tried their damn best
Bring
to
it
make the
back.
Friend Like
I mean,
Me
Disney probably
sequence
has
have the
the
same
technology.
energy in live action. I mean, their sequence uses so much CGI, it's basically animated too. And still, it pales in comparison to the 2D original, because
so
animation
bad.
is practically real goddamn magic compared to the constraints of live action. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Evening. Guards are behind me.
Nearly everything they add is terrible, and everything they rehash is rehashed in a worse way. The Beauty and the Beast remake is much more bearable, but again, bloated. Adds very little I like, puts in a bunch of things that make no difference, and a whole lot of
I think the Avatar back in like 2010 or whatever it came out did irreversible damage to movies because people started realizing in Hollywood that people would be willing to sit through about like 3 to 4 hours of like this stuff. And now everything is a minimum of 2 hours. No, really? I mean, I know it's not an unpopular opinion. I genuinely think it just like took a big fat dump on us. Marvel did that to us. No, but before Marvel, it was definitely Avatar. Yeah. Because the biggest movies were like maybe 2 hours and 15. Now 2 hours was like the standard, I think. When you watch Lord of the Rings, you don't realize it's 2 hours for one movie because it's so well written. With Avatar, it definitely felt like a fucking drag, for sure.
things that make it worse. Gaston doesn't throw eggs in this version, so how good could it possibly be?
Exactly.
It's genuinely admirable how much they try to make these animated characters work in realistic CGI, but they just can't. The Little Mermaid is better than Aladdin, but still so boring and bloated. It adds 2 tiny things I like, puts in things that make no difference, and adds a whole lot of things that make it worse. Notice the pattern here? They add 3 new songs, 2 of which are not just forgettable, but legitimately some of the worst I've ever heard. The one sung by Prince Eric really helps you appreciate musical choreography, because for most of the song, he just drones on while walking down a dirt path.
I'm so glad I never watched this.
Melissa McCarthy. Alright, even good portrayal of Ursula. Nice job. They seem to try less with the design and animation of the sea creatures, especially during the Under the Sea sequence, which has not a single animal playing a nautical-themed instrument. I find it comforting that this film was a financial disappointment for Disney.
Good.
No, don't put that sand dollar in your pocket, sir. Not in your pocket. You'll get mixed in with the others and become just a regular sand dollar. Which it
What is this?
Besides parts of Aladdin,
I don't get
which
this
is
reference.
amazingly bad in the second half. All these remakes left my mind almost as soon as they entered. Their greatest sin is that they're boring.
Artistically, there is nothing to be gained from these, because these aren't just copies, they're bad copies.
Wait a second, Solar Sands. There are good copies out there too. Come on, get out of here.
Okay. Like what?
Hey guys, Solar Sands remake Kino Corner here. I know it's easy to say that all remakes are bad. Hollywood is running out of ideas. They can't stop running out of ideas.
All right, quit
But you know
shilling.
what? This might be controversial for me to say, but not all remakes are bad. In fact, some of them are great. Would you guess that classic movies like The Maltese Falcon, His Girl Friday, Ben-Hur, The Magnificent Seven, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Fly, The Thing, and Sorcerer are all remakes? Heck, even the most badass movie of all time,
Yeah, and you notice what all those things have in common? They didn't have slop loads of CGI, and they actually had good script writing that was reminiscent to the remake. And even if the actors aren't the same, they at least had the same vibe. Yeah, they're old. Yeah, that too. But like some of them from the 30s and 40s, and this one is probably like from the 80s. I can't quite tell. I've never seen it, but like just from the looking at it.
Michael Mann's Heat
Yeah,
is
this
a
is like
remake.
90s, right?
I mean, it's a remake of a TV movie he made called LA Takedown, so it was more like he just wanted another go at the story to make it better. And it worked
Sure.
out. Everyone loves Heat, but hardly anyone remembers LA Takedown. I want to take a look at 2 beloved movies that are remakes,
Ooh.
Scarface and A Fistful of Dollars. Let's start with Scarface. You hear that title and you think
But this is phenomenal. Like, even Scarface is I understand, but they had phenomenal script writing, phenomenal actors. Not to like disparage the people that made these, obviously, but it's just a different time. Yeah. 1983. Damn, it's not even the 90s, it's in the 80s.
Al Pacino snorting coke and introducing all of his buddies to his little friend. The movie is actually a remake of a Howard Hawks film that released in 1932, which was also called Scarface. The 2 films share some thematic similarities about the rise and fall of the titular gangster, the famous line, "The world is yours," and so on. But they're basically 2 very distinct movies. In the 1932
They also came out in completely different eras. We are having to experience a Moana frickin' remake within 10 years of it being out. If Moana came out 30 years from now again, I wouldn't complain that much. That's my biggest gripe.
version. Paul Mooney plays as an
Personally.
Italian gangster in early 30s New York. For the
Yeah.
1983 film, its director, Brian De Palma, set it clearly in South Florida in the 1980s. The remake took a look at the 80s drug trade, Cuban immigration, and 1980s life. So what De Palma did was take a
Wow.
51-year-old film as a baseline, and he entirely reworked it so that it would be modern and culturally
Yeah,
relevant.
modernized it.
Now, as for Fistful of Dollars, it's a very straight remake of Kurosawa's classic Yojimbo. It's beat for beat, almost
And this this is a cultural remake. That's amazing. I had no idea.
It's the exact same film, but Leone brought the story into color and traded samurai aesthetics for cowboy aesthetics. It wasn't a sanctioned remake though, as Toho sued the production for royalties and credits. Kurosawa wrote to Leone saying, "Signor Leone, I have just had the chance to see your film. It is a very fine film, but it is my film.
I mean,
Since
fair.
Japan is a signatory of the Berne Convention on the International Copyright, you must pay me." Does that make a
Kind of cringe, but I get it. I understand where he's coming from. If it's beat for beat, the story is the same. I think that it's like when Disney took the Japanese movie about a lion and it was white and then they just adapted it. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the same principle. He didn't, like, you know, fucking tell him to go fuck himself. Like, he was being pretty respectful. Yeah, Kimba, exactly. They literally took the idea, man.
fistful of dollars bad? No, it still rocks. I love both films. They have the same story, same beats, and some of the same jokes, though a few things were changed. But both films have excellent direction, and Toshiro Mifune and Clint Eastwood are both legendary leading men.
They're amazing.
They can coexist and work as complementary films, and maybe a fun double feature. What I'm getting at is,
if anything, if it was like, again, it's adapted for the Western audience. You think that Western audience would want to watch a Japanese samurai movie? I think it's very niche.
this. Remakes can be good, but maybe they're often not. They're good or even great when the people making them love the source material and want to put their own spin on it. Sometimes there are films that have great ideas in them, but were just executed poorly. Those are great films to remake because a good filmmaker can see where the original went wrong and make something great out of it. However, remakes are not good when it's a person or a studio who just wants to make a cheap buck by profiting off of people's nostalgia. If the intention is soulless,
Member
then the
Bears
result
chat.
is soulless.
When I first saw the CGI version of Peter Cushing's Grand Moff Tarkin show up in Rogue One, the worst of my feelings were that I could tell it was CGI. These days, I fear it was the beginning of something much more insidious. While using old footage and computer manipulation to create scenes using the likeness of a long-dead actor has been tried as far back as 2004, it has become more and more commonplace to simulate the likenesses of long-deceased actors using CGI and AI, and puppet them around in movies. Harold Ramis, who played Egon Spangler in the original Ghostbusters, shows up in Ghostbusters Afterlife as a ghost. Christopher Reeve
An AI ghost or like an actual ghost?
shows up in that awful Flash movie as a horribly uncanny abomination, along with half a dozen or so actors. Some dead, some still alive. Including George Reeves, who, killed himself.
Alrighty.
Just recently,
Strong?
Ian Holmes' likeness was used in multiple scenes in Alien Romulus as another android.
It's so bad!
The director,
This looks awful!
Fede Alvarez, says he reached out to the widow of Ian Holm and received authorization from the rest of his family. Ian Holmes'
Authorization. Authorization.
widow felt he would have loved it. Besides the fact she could not possibly know that for certain,
How the fuck would
it
you
kind
know
of doesn't
that?
matter to me that Ian Holmes' wife and family approved of it. That's better than them not approving of it, but my stance on this as a moral issue is that we should not be puppeting around the face and voice of a dead person as if they were still alive for our entertainment, especially when it is entirely avoidable.
That's why I think it's weird when they offer the, you know, the family tree bullshit and then they animate the faces. I just can't with that. It's so bizarre and uncanny to me.
Nothing about the existence of Romulus required Ian Holmes' likeness.
No.
The android could have been anyone, just a random actor. Fede Alvarez defends himself, saying,
Was the character the same character as the one he acted, or was it just a random droid? Does anybody know? Because, like, I can understand somewhat. I'm not saying it's okay, but I could understand, like, hey, it's the same guy. It was another copy of the droid. Same model android. Different characters, same model of android. That is weird. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like an iffy territory in my opinion.
It was a genuine attempt to honor him. But there's so much money at stake with these kinds of films, I just don't believe that. The fact that anyone excuses this, and that it's not an instant reason to avoid this film, astonishes me. It's one thing to use tricks of editing or even a CGI model, in the case that an actor dies while making a film to complete their scenes. It's quite another to bring an actor back from the dead when it is entirely avoidable for, let's face it, a cheap thrill of nostalgia.
So weird.
I find it absolutely repulsive.
Guy blew his brains
To be clear,
out.
it wouldn't matter if these uncanny recreations looked super convincing, and it wouldn't matter if they got permission from everyone in the actors' families for each of these cameos. If they got consent from the living person before they died to do something like this, while that would be better, I would still oppose it artistically. There are more subtle and tasteful.
There are actually a decent amount of actors that passed away during filming, and then they had to redo it, and it turned out for the better for the actor that had to replace them. There are many such cases. I can't name any off the top of my head, but I think there's a voice actor, yeah, that passed away, and they had to like do something about it because they were like way through the production of film. Yeah, it's not always a bad thing to let them rest, you know?
ways to honor a dead actor.
Yeah.
Literally having them show up as some sort of action figure just speaks to a lack of imagination. Creating projects with the intention of using a long dead actor is not just tacky, but sociopathic. This isn't simply playing archival footage of an actor. This isn't simply an actor playing another dead actor, who, while is imitating a dead person, can easily be separated from the real person who once existed. This is a trick of digital necromancy. And
or even better, you're recreating it for the purpose of honoring the actor because you're reliving their... Why is he covered in goop? Like, you're honoring the story of them.
Attempt to bring back the living likeness and aura of a once real person. It's not just a copy, it's a bad copy.
It's so weird.
It is fundamentally a refusal of death, and a denial of the sacredness of death. In modern cinema, nothing is allowed to die. No franchise can simply end. If it does end, it must go out kicking and...
Someone said Indiana Jones, the actor that plays Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, is 80 years old, man. That's reamed out AF.
Screaming.
He's 82.
No once living
Good
actor can
Lord.
rest if they can be resurrected for profit later down the line. If the film industry can't stop themselves from using AI to resurrect the dead, I guarantee it is salivating at the thought of being able to use AI in every part of filmmaking. They tried to do it with the intro to Secret Invasion. Even with the death of James Earl Jones, I'm certain the only thing on Disney executives' minds is, do we recreate his voice with AI?
Oh, absolutely. They'll think about the profit loss of people being like, oh my god, this is so disrespectful, to, oh shit, who the heck is that? That's an awesome voice. I'm gonna buy their slop.
Because even though Darth Vader's story has been complete for decades, they have to bring him back.
We don't care.
He's too popular not to bring back. They have no self-control. They cannot help themselves. Christ, is there going to be a point we don't get any new actors anymore because of AI? The whole system is based on intellectual properties, with a significantly weakened star-based system, which doesn't allow interesting scripts to succeed without being attached to an IP. Are we seriously going to resurrect actors just to play the same stale characters?
What?
This is why I call this the worst era in film history.
Yep.
There's been periods of remakes and sequels in movie history, but I have never seen anything like this before. People have to stop paying for these movies if you want things to change.
They won't.
I tend to avoid these movies, because when I hear about them, I consistently hear bad things. And once these movies have been out for a few weeks, no one talks about them. Kung Fu Panda 4 was the 8th highest grossing film in the US this year.
What? I thought they stopped Kung Fu Panda after 2 or 3. I was like, what the hell?
When was the last time someone talked about it? Wonka
No
made a
one.
ton of money last year. When was the last time you saw someone mention that movie? There was a live-action Avatar remake on Netflix this year. I completely forgot that existed.
Oh, I mean, everybody shit all over it, yeah.
Do you know that a Pinocchio remake came out? Another
No.
Ghostbusters film came out this year. Did you know that? On the other hand, when Dune Part 2 was released, there was a solid month of very popular memes about it. And yes, it is a remake, but of a book series and a film that is famously not considered the most perfect film of the 80s.
And it's been almost 50 years since it came out. But then again, you could make that argument for Star Wars as well. I don't know. Again, if it's a good remake, I guess it's not that bad.
And it also has the advantage of being good.
OG movies are bad?
I believe these
I wouldn't
films
know.
will have no cultural impact. That's the silver lining to all of this. They have no staying power. Disney has a finite amount of good films they can remake in their backlog. And even if they remake every single one of them, they will run out. And when they run out, they will be screwed.
That's actually going to be terrifying. With the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't know how that's gonna fly. Like, there's some really dark themes, and like Quasimodo's like going through it, you know? He's really ugly. Like, I feel like I don't think they're gonna do that.
We
Yeah,
saw
they
them
can't-
try and make an
And again, it was a very powerful movie, but it's really dark.
original project again, and it was terrible. The music in a Disney musical was bad. Can you believe that?
Yeah, this movie
They have
was ass,
forgotten
apparently.
how to make good movies. When people say that if you keep complaining about all these movies, all the
Wait, excuse me? Star Wars' biggest problems is the fans. Chat, where did we hear this before? Gamers are the problem. Chat, the customers are the problem. I've heard this before, this rhetoric. Yeah, it's the gamers, it's the fans that love the old movies. Yeah, you're right, Disney, you're right. We should shut up.
all these Star Wars projects, all these sequels and remakes and films based off other properties, maybe you won't get anymore, as if the audience was some sort of misbehaving child. They fail to realize, I would rather have no films than an abundance of films that cannibalize our culture. These studio films are products, and over again, we have been sold significantly worse products than what we had before. Yes, I want these films to fail. I want them to fail because they have given me no reason to wish for their success.
Unfortunately, the problem with this is that even for the 3 flops that exist, that lose them hundreds of millions of dollars, there are movies that make them hundreds and millions of dollars more than the losses, and that's how they can cope with it. Everything would have to flop because it just doesn't work, like, on a functional level. Like, even if this sucked and it failed and it lost millions of dollars, it doesn't matter because there's gonna be another Frozen 3 and it's gonna make billions.
But if it's the case that these kinds of films continue to be successful, then I see a dark future ahead, where the same handful of franchises
Ouroboros.
are restarted over and over, and billions of dollars are spent not on artists trying to move us into the future, but on trying to resurrect the past. We will not only see the same ideas on the big screen again and again, but also the same faces.
I'm surprised you didn't talk about the censorship, low-key, of, like, changing stories and narratives and outcomes. Just because it doesn't suit the modern, like, idea of something. Even if it talks about something that's quite dark and maybe, like, makes you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. I guess this is already a 40-minute video.
Reminder that if family
Be an
sleeping
hour
interests
long.
you, sign up for a 14-day free trial with the link below and enjoy all MyHeritage has to offer. Thanks to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video. Another announcement. Fudo, a tech company who
Announcement.
employs some friends I know, is holding a contest for all UI and UX designers. The contest is to create a new cohesive design language for their brand and apps. The grand prize is $5,000 along with a chance at a full-time position. It's only open to US residents over 18. If you're interested in applying, you can learn more at contest.fudo.org.
I live on the moon, I guess
I'm not
I
being
can't.
paid to say this, it's just a potential job opportunity for any artists and designers in my audience. A special
That's
thanks to the
cool.
Kino Corner for his segment and help with this video. His channel is linked in the description. The names scrolling past are my patrons from Patreon, who help support the channel. Their funds allow me to make videos like this and more.
Wow.
If you want to become a patron, you also get access to behind-the-scenes material, some of my writing, early video announcements, and access to my fan Discord. Just click the link in the description below. Anyway, my name is Solar Sands, and
Goodbye, Solar Sands. Bye. Bye-bye. Clappies. That was a good watch. It definitely was. It put them some things into perspective again, huh? Oh my god! Guys, check them out. Solar Sands. Very nice. Very epic. I like this kind of stuff, even though it's pretty fucking long. I do. When will we stop regurgitating the same crap over and over?